everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on a Saturday, Back to School Support and Resources for Inspire Science K-8. My name is Sarah Shuja and I'm Market Manager at McGraw Hill based in Dubai. Before I go on any further, let's just pause and check if the audio connection is working all right. So if you can hear my voice on the screen on the right side, you'll see a hand icon. It should appear just below your name. Please click on the hand icon if you can hear my voice. Okay, brilliant. I see a lot of hands going up, so we're sorted there. Excellent. I'll just give you a brief overview of the session today. This is an implementation training session for Inspire Science K-8. So if you teach grades K-8 and are using Inspire Science in the upcoming academic year, this session is for you. So you're in the right place. You'll learn about teaching strategies to redesign your classroom. And we've got a trainer today, which is Jason Marshall. So we're delighted to have Jason join us today. Thank you, Jason, for your time.
Good to be here.
Great. We have moderators for you today who will be helping out with the Q&A session and also the chat. So on the right side, you'll see chat and Q&A. So we will be responding to you, to your queries and getting back to you. So I have my colleague Afsana and Nasir who are helping us today. So we're here in the background to sort of sort you out with your queries. I spoke about Jason and a bit of a background about Jason. Some of you might be familiar. He's from earlier sessions that we've had with Jason. Jason is a senior consultant at McGraw Hill and has been a district manager and vice president at Urban Education. He has also taught middle school science and is well versed with internet and technology industry. Jason has conducted numerous successful workshops and presentations, plus PD sessions in schools in the United States and abroad. We're absolutely delighted to have Jason join us today. Thanks. I'm just going to quickly pass over to my colleague, Afsana, who's going to go over the housekeeping slides. And after that's done, we'll give over to Jason, and then we can begin the presentation. Thank you for joining. We hope you find this useful. Can't hear you, Afsana.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. Sorry. Yeah, just as Savich mentioned, we will just cover a few things before we begin. Just so in terms of your audio, if you are experiencing any sound issues and have called in using your computer, we would recommend just disconnecting from the computer and actually calling in using your phone. We just find that you tend to have a better connection, be able to hear better as well. Just a few things to bear in mind if you are having a few problems. If you've got anyone that is streaming Netflix, YouTube, or any other kind of high bandwidth platforms in your home, that could impact your network as well. Of course, if you do miss anything because of connectivity issues, we are recording a session as well, and we'll be circulating that recording after you as well. That will arrive in email within a week of today, and that will also include your certificate, which you can download from that email. Of course, there will be a Q&A at the end as well, so if you have any questions, just feel free to use the chat box and the Q&A on the side. You probably noticed we've how to meet attendees. However, like I mentioned, use the chat box, the Q&A, any questions you guys have, any comments, just drop them into there. And of course, if you have any technical issues as well, you can use the chat box to message me privately as well. Yep, pass on to Jason now.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yep.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Jason Marshall, and I am going to, over the next hour, hour and a half, walk you through Inspire Science. What's found in the student edition, what features are there that will help students walk through the lesson. We'll go to the online experience. So I have myself as a teacher online, so we'll see what the online experience looks like as a teacher. I also have a student. My student will be, let me scroll up just a little bit. My student will be JJ, and we'll walk to see what the experience looks like on the student side as well. And over the next hour and a half, I will send JJ some assignments. JJ will take those assignments. He'll send them back to me as a teacher so you can see how it works to make an assignment for a student, send that assignment to the student, what it looks like on their side, and then how you see the scores after they've completed an assignment. We'll try to do all of that this morning so you get a better feel for how this program can work in a remote learning classroom. But before we do, I'd like for you to find your chat function on your WebEx. So find the chat tool. I'm going to ask you a few questions that I'd like for you to respond in the chat window. Okay, so everybody find their chat window. And the first question is this. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself about teaching students remotely? What advice would you give yourself about teaching students remotely? If you could go back in time, I bet you started teaching students remotely in probably late March, maybe April. At least that's when it started here in the States. What advice would you give yourself? Go ahead and share that in your chat window. What have you learned over this time? Give you a few moments to share your thoughts. More activities and games. Great idea. It's definitely, you got to get students engaged. They're at home. You can't see them. Definitely activities and games. What else? Anybody else like something to share? I have to be well with technology. Okay, yeah, very good. Keep it interesting. It's hard to keep their attention sometimes when you're not in front of them. Very good advice. Keep it interesting. Anything else that you'd like to share? Okay. All right. I've got one more question. Motivating. There. Make it easy for them. Oh, that's great advice. Make it easy for them. It can't be too complicated. Everybody is not in front of us anymore. Do session interesting and more interactive. Very good. Great advice. Sharing videos. Thank you all for sharing that advice. We've all learned quite a bit in remote learning since we've been doing it. In fact, many of us have probably become experts at this point. Proper tech training for teachers, that's definitely important, and we're getting better at that. Try to let them know that how important technology is for their future. Very good. I think that's extremely important, Kareem. Thank you all for sharing that. Keep that chat function open. I've got one more question for you before we get started. It'll give you an idea of where you're at in your understanding about Inspire Science. So here's the question. How would you rate your understanding of Inspire Science, the program that I'm about to train you on? 1 being you're a beginner, you don't know very much at all. 10, you're an expert. Where are you between 1 and 10 in your knowledge of Inspire Science? Okay, I've got a beginner, I've got someone who's pretty well along. I see an 8, I see another 1, okay. We've got a range of understanding of Inspire Science, okay. Thank you, Mona, I appreciate you sharing that. Raheem, thank you very much. All right, very good. We've got a range of understanding of Inspire Science, okay? That's kind of what I thought. So I'll treat this as if many of you haven't seen this program at all, and we'll move quickly. I don't want to leave anybody behind and go too far advanced. I'll start at the very beginning. We'll give everybody a solid foundation. And if you have any questions, if you're on the expert side, we'll make sure to answer those before the end of the session or after the session if necessary, if you need to go deeper, okay? So let's begin the training. This is Inspire Science, and Inspire Science for the students they have a work text, a student work text we call it. We call it a work text because they are writing in these student editions. They are journaling in them. It's even more of a journal than it is a traditional textbook. They're collecting their data in them because their labs are in them. And we replace these for every student every year as long as you have Inspire Science in your classroom. Here we have kindergarten in the upper left, first grade, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Each one of these is a unit, and there's 4 units per student per grade each and every year. The same is true in middle school, so grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 4 units per student per year. We replace each one of these for every student as long as you have Inspire Science in your classroom. Every one of these units is broken down into modules. So each one of these units, you'll find anywhere between 1 and 2 modules in these units. Some of these might only have 1 unit, others might have, or 1 module, others might have 2 modules, okay? If you want to think of these as chapters, feel free to think of them as chapters. We choose to call them modules at Inspire Science, but chapters will work as well. And then the modules are broken down into lessons. So we have units, You see 4 of these units broken down into modules and then broken down into lessons. Pretty similar to what we've seen in the past, okay? Units, modules, and lessons. But we also know students are accessing content in very different ways these days. They're used to turning things on, they're used to being connected, they're using different devices. So Inspire Science has both print and digital, and they can access the program online, both you, the teacher, and the student. On what devices? A PC, laptop, Chromebook, tablet, and even a smartphone. So you, the teacher, can create assignments, can create tests on any one of these devices, and students can take those assignments and take those tests on any one of these devices. So maximum access. So before I walk through a student lesson experience, it's really helpful to take a look at the big picture of a module. So this is a schematic for a typical module in Inspire Science. So we start right here at the module opener. It's a 2-page spread, and it introduces a phenomena, something to pique students' interest and get them curious about something. It goes right into a STEM module project launch, which is an introduction into the STEM module project that awaits students at the end. So we introduce the STEM module project at the beginning of the module. They don't see it until the end. They don't finish it until the end, I should say. But we introduce it at the beginning. So in the one I'm about to share with you, students are being told, hey, at the end of all these lessons, at the end of the module, you're going to create a device that uses either light or sound to transmit a message across the class. We want them thinking about that. All along the way, it'll give context to each and every lesson that follows. Why have this big STEM project at the end when you have the opportunity to integrate it into the lessons and have students think about their task all the way through? So that's what we do. We introduce it at the beginning. We then go into the lesson. We use the 5E lesson model in Inspire Science. Many of you are familiar with the 5E lesson model. We utilize it. It's a research-based approach. But our lessons have one additional step at the beginning. It's the first step in each and every lesson. You see it here in purple. It's the Page-Keeley Science Probe. It's an opportunity to uncover misconceptions students have, get students thinking and talking. And if you're not familiar with the probe, we're going to do one together here shortly. So every lesson begins with a probe. After the first lesson, they're going to make a little contribution to that STEM project, okay? So they're going to fill in a little bit of it that they're able to after lesson 1. Then they go into lesson 2. After lesson 2, they're going to contribute a little to the STEM project as well. And then after all lessons, after second lesson, third lesson, maybe there are 4 lessons, then they're eventually going to finish that STEM project at the end. But they've made contributions to it all along the way. So by the time they get to it, that STEM module project is halfway done. They're just wrapping it up, creating their design, refining it, and then communicating the results to the class. Okay, so this is the big picture. What does it look like in the student edition? Well, let's take a look page by page. I'm at that first location, this one right up here, the module opener. And so we're in this grade 4 lesson. So what I'm going to walk you through is a module in grade 4. This module is called Information Processing and Transfer. And it's going to talk about how humans and animals communicate in very similar ways. How do they transmit information? How do they receive information? And so here it says, how does a lighthouse transmit a message across a distance? And there's a little reference here to a video online to take a look at it, to introduce this phenomena. Now, when you go online, there's a presentation that's available to you. So let me go to my teacher side here. And let me go into grade 4 where that is found. Oh, there's that presentation. I had it up and running. I didn't even realize it. So here we have that module opener in a pre-made presentation found online. And we'll learn more about these pre-made presentations here in a little bit. And it says, how does a lighthouse transmit a message across a distance? And when you're in the presentation, the video is already embedded. So it's referenced in the student edition. But if you use the presentation, we have this video right here waiting for us. And so I'm going to open it up. Now, I'm going to mute the audio, but what you hear here are little squeaks and little clicks because these dolphins are communicating with each other. And what students will ask themselves when they're listening to this is, how are these dolphins communicating? Do they have a language? Do they have an alphabet? And by the way, I can move the screen around with my cursor and take a look at this from different orientations. Do they have an alphabet? Do they understand an alphabet? Do dolphins in one part of the world have the same language as dolphins in another part of the world? How far does their language travel? Does it travel 30 feet, a mile? How far can they understand each other? Phenomena are designed to get students thinking and talking and asking questions. So we have a phenomena-based approach in Inspire Science. Most every module will begin with a phenomena of some type that students have to consider, think about. And so every module will begin with that phenomena and a video found online. From there, we're going to go into that STEM module project launch. Remember, this is the introduction into the STEM project. They come of two types, science challenges and engineering challenges. This one, as you remember, students are creating a device. We're asking them to be a telecommunications engineer. And they're going to design a device to communicate a message using either light or sound to transmit that message across the class. Be thinking about this all along the way in this module. Okay, so we just introduce it at the beginning, and we have a discussion about it at the beginning of the module. From there, we go into the 5E lesson model, just like the schematic said. But remember what the schematic said? We have one additional step. It's Paige Keeley and her formative assessment probes. So we're going to do one together here. And if you've been with me before, it's probably the same one we've done before, because I like to use it in training to introduce teachers to the concept. It's not the one from this specific module, but it's one I like to use to introduce the concept. And it's called the mitten probe. Now, Paige Keeley, if you haven't heard that name before, she's a former president of the National Science Teachers Association. She's a wildly successful author. These books, man, they are all over the United States and the world. And teachers are using them to uncover misconceptions and get students thinking and talking. And the one I'm going to share with you is called the mitten probe. Okay, so it's going to create a scenario, and you've got to decide which answer you think is the best answer for the scenario. And here it is. It's called the mitten probe. Sarah's science class is investigating heat energy. They wondered what would happen to the temperature reading on a thermometer if they put the thermometer inside of a mitten. Sarah's group obtained 2 thermometers and a mitten. They put one thermometer inside the mitten and the other thermometer on the table next to the mitten. An hour later, they compared the readings on the 2 thermometers. The temperature in the room remained the same throughout the experiment. So if you need a place to envision this taking place, imagine this taking place in the room you're in right now. 2 thermometers, 1 mitten, 1 thermometer inside the mitten, the other thermometer on the table next to the mitten. What's going to happen over an hour? So the last part says, what do you think Sarah's group will discover from their investigation? Circle the response that best matches your thinking. Okay, so here are our choices. Do you think that A, the thermometer inside the mitten, will have a lower temperature reading after an hour than the thermometer on the table? Do you think that B, the thermometer inside the mitten, will have a higher temperature reading after an hour than the thermometer on the table? Or do you think that C, both thermometers, will have the same temperature reading? Now, the answers are going to be all over the place. This last part is the most important part. Describe your thinking. So here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to go into the chat window, and I'd like for you to choose A, B, or C, and give me a really short explanation as to why. I saw somebody beat me to that instruction, but that is a good thing. I want you to think about this. What do you think the best answer is and why? Go into the chat window and share that with me. Okay, I've got Rami. She's has put C as an answer. What else do we have? Anybody else want to take a shot at this? If you just want to put an answer and no explanation, that's fine also. Thank you. Norhan, very good. Sahar, very good. C, okay. Any other thoughts on this one? Go ahead and use that chat window. I've got a B, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. I think the letter B would be a good answer. Okay, Pascal, very good. Any A's? No A's so far. We've got B's and C's. Now, this is a 4th grade probe. Thank you, Anas. Now, I've got a little bit of disagreement here between B and C. It seems like B and C are very well represented here in this chat. So thank you all for sharing that. So the idea of the probe is several things fold. So 1, based on what students answer in this probe and the description that they give, it gives you an idea of what students are thinking. And how do you know that? Because Paige Keeley will tell you in the Teacher's Edition, if students choose A, this is probably what they're thinking and why. If they choose B, this is likely what the reason why they're choosing B. And if they choose C, this is why. And she equips you going in these with not only the science content background to feel comfortable with this, but also what the misconceptions are going into this lesson. And if I were with you today, I'd probably have you go into small groups and share your thinking with your classmates. So you chose B, why did you choose B? Tell me why. And give me an opportunity to explain why I chose C and why. And you might change each other's thinking in that discussion. So now you've got this little small group discussion going. I also might get in order to know what you're thinking, instead of using the chat window, I might have you put fingers underneath your chin, like 1 finger for A, 2 fingers for B, 3 fingers for C. And this is all if we were together in a classroom together. And it would give me an opportunity to see what you're thinking in a very anonymous, non-threatening way for students. And now students are wanting to know what the best answer is. Okay, is it A, is it B, is it C? We're at the beginning of the lesson. So the best answer for the mitten probe is, now the idea of the mitten probe is I'm not supposed to give you the best answer at the beginning of the lesson. If I gave you the best answer right now at the beginning of the lesson, what would stop? The thinking would stop. The curiosity would stop. You don't want that to stop. You want that to continue. Paige Keeley would say, let them grapple with this question. Let them struggle with it. Let them work on it. Let them figure this out over time. So you don't want to give students the answers during the probe. Let's see if they can figure this out over time. And so that's the one I like to introduce to use the concept. Give us the answer already. Oh, you are curious. Now that proves the effectiveness of the probe. Students will want to know the answer as well. But you got to resist the urge to give it. And by the way, I'll give it to you before the end of the training here. If you're really curious, remind me and I'll give you the best answer to that mitten probe. But here's the one for the specific lesson we're in. It's called animal eyes. Because remember, we're talking about how animals and humans see the world and if there are possible similarities. 2 friends were talking about animal eyes. They know that animals that are active at night have very large eyes. And this is what they said. Laura said owls have large eyes so they can see in the dark. They do not need light to see. But Jaden said animals like owls have large eyes to help them see in the dark. They still need some light to see. Who do you agree with most and why? Remember, it's this explanation that is the really important part. So another way we use the probe in the program is that we're going to revisit this over time. So as you go through the lesson, your thinking is likely to change. And we want that to take place. It even mirrors the way scientists work, because they will change their thinking as they get additional information. And so here's a Paige Keeley probe strategy. She calls this the sticky note strategy. And so here we have a probe posted on the board. And you can't see this, but the blue sticky note says April 15th. That's the beginning of the lesson. That's when the probe was introduced. Purple is a week later, April 22nd. And yellow is 2 weeks into the lesson, April 29th. The big question of the probe is posted up here next to it. And there are answer choices A through G for this particular probe. Looks like on the beginning of the lesson, a lot of students thought A was the best answer. Not all of them, but certainly a lot of them. A week into the lesson in purple, now they've come off of A quite a bit, haven't they? They're not quite sure. They're all over the place and they're thinking about this. 2 weeks into the lesson in yellow, they've had a few labs, they've had a few experiences, maybe a virtual lab or two. And now they're starting to think D is the best possible answer. So this is one of many strategies we support the probes with. Some involve tossing paper around the room, which is really fun for students. They share their answer on a probe. They tear it out of their page. They share it with their classmates, and maybe somebody else explains their answer for them. There's a fishbowl strategy where you have an expert group in the middle and then listeners on the outside. So many really engaging strategies that we use these probes, and we'll make sure that you maximize their effectiveness in each and every lesson. Every lesson begins with this Paige Keeley probe. And the one other thing I want to share with you is that they're all outlined in purple. So the Paige Keeley probe feature will have a purple outline like you see here. So if you're flipping through the student book, you know at every time where the beginning of the lesson is, because you see this purple. Paige Keeley probe's purple outline pages mark the beginning of a new lesson. So you'll notice some color coding as you go throughout the Inspire Science lesson. And I'll share with you some other places in which we've done that to make the program a little bit easier to navigate and find stuff. So now we're at the beginning of the lesson, engage. And here we have another phenomena video. It says, how do eyes help animals see? Take a look at the video online. So here I have the video embedded within this PowerPoint. So this cat is looking at us. Why is his eyes changing shape? Is there more light coming into the room? Less light? Is something getting closer or farther away from the cat? Is it possible the cat is communicating and sending a message with his eyes? Why is the eyes doing that? So we're going to introduce this lesson with this phenomena and get students thinking and asking questions about what's going on. We have question prompts, so you don't always have to guess what questions will get students going. We're going to have some prompts and some ways in which we can get that discussion going for students. The second E is explore, and that will always mean some sort of an activity or an investigation. And they come in different types. Hands-on investigation, so like a traditional lab might be one of these, but it could also be a simulation or virtual lab, a data analysis lab, a research project, or an engineering challenge. And all of our labs or investigations are yellow. So wherever you see these yellow pages, you know you're at a lab or an investigation. Again, making them easy to find. There are anywhere between 2 and 5 labs and investigations in each and every lesson of Inspire Science. We're in this third E, which is explore and explain. We're going to have vocabulary listed, highlighted in yellow. As we flip through the pages, you're going to see references to simulations and videos online. So at any time, students can go online and take a look at a simulation. This simulation, as a teacher, you could assign it to students to do in a virtual classroom. So you could make this as an assignment to them, and I'll show you how to do that today, and then they could do that at home. It might be that it's asking students to watch. So any resource that's referenced in the student edition, whether it be a video, a virtual lab or simulation, that probe, that lab, specific resource I could assign to students to do in a remote classroom. And we're going to show how to do that. Even this elaborate. So any specific feature can be assigned. The elaborate in Inspire Science is always an extension outside of the classroom. So here we're going to learn about veterinarians. What do they do? In K through 5 Inspire Science, we use these avatars. We call these STEM career kids. And each one will have a career that they're very interested in. Ruby wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She'll talk to students about it. There's videos. She'll talk about veterinary medicine. And we want students to get excited about STEM careers at a much earlier age. So elaborate will always be an extension out into the real world. You'll also see in elaborate typically a second or a third lab or investigations. Look for connections to math, engineering, reading, and other disciplines outside of the science classroom as well. Middle school teachers, these are features from your books, grades 6, 7th, and 8th. In elaborate, they look a little bit different, but it's the same idea. We're taking students outside into the class, out of the classroom. So Science and Society magazine articles, Careers in Science magazine articles. So elaborate is always some sort of extension outside of the classroom. And now we're in the last E, evaluate. And that means we're going to summarize it. We're going to put it all together. We have a 3-dimensional thinking prompt here. And then we're going to revisit that probe. Remember, we're always revisiting the probe at the end of each and every lesson. So there's a little arrow pointing back. Say, hey, see if our thinking has changed on that probe at the beginning. There's a little arrow moving forward, and that's to make a contribution to our STEM module project. Hold that thought for just a moment. And then there'll be an extended. So if you have students that finish early, gifted and talented students, they need a challenge. There's always an opportunity to take those students deeper, maybe do a research project about what they've learned. So we finished the lesson. Now it's time to make a contribution to that STEM module project. So if we're at lesson 1, we're going to flip past lesson 2 and 3 and 4, and we're going to make a contribution. And notice it has a little place here to do that. It says planning after lesson 1. So here's that contribution students are going to make to that STEM module project. After they're done with lesson 2, there's a space for them to put that contribution here to lesson 2. After lesson 3, there's a space. So by the time they eventually get to the end of all lessons, they're halfway done. They've planned after lesson 1, after lesson 2, and lesson 3, and now they're just kind of finishing up their STEM project. They're sketching the model. If it's an engineering challenge, they're going to use the engineering design loop to come up with a creative solution for this problem, that design, if you will. And then they're going to communicate their results with the class. So every module begins in that way. We start with that anchoring phenomena video. We go into STEM module project launch. We go into the 5E lesson model with one additional step, the Page-Keeley probe, at the beginning of each and every lesson. And then we walk through the 5Es. Now in grades 6, 7th, and 8th, there's a subtle change in grades 6, 7th, and 8th than what we saw here. At the beginning of every lesson, you have the claim, evidence, and reasoning framework a little bit more prominent. In grades K through 5, claim, evidence, and reasoning is one per module, and it's a one-page feature. In grades 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, it's in each and every lesson, and it's a two-page feature. Now, some of you might use claim, evidence, and reasoning, and some might not use claim, evidence, and reasoning. It's basically a tool in which we can have, it's a tool and a strategy in which students can figure out phenomena and come up with explanations using evidence. If you don't use claim, evidence, and reasoning in your classroom, you could skip over this feature. You don't have to use it, but know that it's integrated within the lesson model. And how do they know to come to this feature? To add additional evidence in the space provided? As they're walking through the lesson, wherever they see this blue box, wherever you see this blue box, it will say collect evidence. And it will tell them, hey, it's time to go back to that two-page spread and add your evidence in box A. You're ready to do that. Or add your evidence in box B. And then students will flip back to that page and go right where it told them to add that new evidence. So it's just a strategy embedded within the lessons in which students can collect evidence and make sense of it over time. We have a lot of visual learners in our classroom. Research says about 65% of us are visual learners, so there's a lot of visual tools in Inspire Science. Things like foldables. These are three-dimensional graphic organizers. Many of you have heard of foldables. We've been partners with foldables for about 20 years now. And in that time, foldables have become the most successful graphic organizer system in the world. And they're only found in McGraw Hill resources. Look for those in Inspire Science, and I'll show you where to find them. We saw that the modules and the lessons, most every module and lesson will begin with some kind of phenomena video. If it's not a video, it will typically be an interactive or some sort of simulation that students must consider at the beginning of a module and lesson. For those labs that are too dangerous, too time-consuming, too expensive to do in class, well, let's do them through a virtual lab or a virtual simulation. So you're an elementary school teacher or you're teaching remotely, you're definitely not going to be able to heat up iodine for students and to see the effect it has on the iodine molecules. Looks like they're getting more agitated. Also looks like they're taking up more volume in a confined space. You may not have the logistics to do this in a classroom. You definitely can't do this remotely, but you could do this virtually. And so virtual labs and simulations are part of the program. Students have access to these anytime, anywhere, and any one of these I could assign to my students. So they know this is something I want them to experience specifically. Kindergarten and first grade teachers, you have read alouds. These are a lot like your big books where students are gathered around, let's read a story. They come in both fiction and nonfiction, all in one little magazine. And when we get students back in the classroom, these are projectable as well. So instead of having them around you, huddled around, you could have them projected on the screen and we could read it together. Grades K2 through 5, there are investigator articles. Now these tools, these read alouds and these investigator articles, these are great tools to use remotely. Our investigator articles are high interest, magazine style articles talking about cool science, fun science, like eye technology. I remember a movie, Mission Impossible. It was filmed in Dubai and they had this eye technology and they were able to perceive and receive information through what was essentially a contact lens that was interactive and looks like we're heading in that direction. It was science fiction not too long ago, but we're there. So these will cover things like that. Driverless cars is one of the science investigator articles. And each one of these ends with a task, which makes it a great remote learning activity. So it'll ask them to write a paragraph or do a little research on something or create a model about something. So great tools to use remotely. Grades K through 5, you also have investigator articles. They come, or level readers, I should say. They come in 4 levels. Orange is approaching level, blue is on level, green is beyond level, and fourth is for English language learners. So students see the same cover, the same title. They think they're all reading at the same level. They don't know what the color coding means. Only you do. And they get the same content just written at a level that's appropriate for them. So look for those leveled readers. These are assignable as well. So everything that I'm sharing with you is assignable online. And as we wrap up this overview, I want to talk about assessment just a little bit. So what assessment options do I have in Inspire Science? Well, we've got several available. We've seen one already, the page K-8. This is formative assessment. Formative assessment should be assessment for learning, not assessment of learning. So that's why we put it at the beginning of the lesson, an opportunity to gauge students' understanding and their ideas going into the lesson. Page K-8 is just one of many formative assessment opportunities. We also have pre-made pre-tests that you could send students on the test generator. So what about performance assessment? Well, every module ends with that STEM module project launch. It's an opportunity for students to demonstrate their understanding by creating or designing or performing a task. So formative assessment at the beginning, performance assessment at the end. But what about all along the way? Do we have quizzes and tests and pre-tests and post-tests? Yes, we do. We've got a test generator with all of those things. Create a test in seconds, or just use one of our pre-made tests that we've already created for you and just print it out if we have students in the classroom and make copies of that. Or send that test digitally to students. They could take it on their device. Notice that there are even technology-enhanced questions like the one you see on the right, where students are manipulating things on the screen. If they take it digitally, it gets scored for you automatically. And then you can generate reports to see how students are doing on specific areas of weakness. Okay? So that's an advantage of administering a test digitally. So a lot of different resources in K-8 Inspire Science, and a very consistent lesson model that makes it very easy for in-classroom instruction and very easy for remote learning instruction as well. So we've taken a look at an overview of Inspire Science. Let's go online and see what all of this looks like through the digital experience. So I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to go online to my teacher side. So remember, I have a teacher up here. That's me, Jason. And I also have a student up and running, and that will be JJ. And we're going to start on the teacher side and eventually go over to the student side to see what it looks like on that. Now, the student side, let me show you this right at the very beginning. The student side in K through 5 looks different than it does in the middle school grades. So if I go into grade 4 as JJ, let's just take a quick peek in there as JJ's experience. And by the way, it may look different than last year if you taught this last year. So over the course of the last year, we've made the K-5 experience much more student-friendly than it was before. So here's JJ's experience as a 4th grade student. Very, very elementary appropriate. Now, if we go out of here and take a look at JJ, the 7th grade student, let's take a look at the student experience here. It will look a little bit different, okay? Looks a little bit different. That hasn't changed much over the last year if you taught Inspire Science last year. But the K through 5 experience definitely has, because we had feedback that said it was a little not so student-friendly. It looked like this, actually. And we wanted to make the K-5 experience look a lot more student-friendly, okay? So let's go into the teacher side to begin. So I'm a teacher, and I have a 7th grade class and a 4th grade class. Let's start at 4th grade, and then I'll go at the 7th grade before we leave here today. So I'm a 4th grade teacher. What does my experience look like? Okay, well, it looks like this. And there's a few things that I wanted to make you aware of. One, I have my navigational tools over here on the left. I could close these and hide these by clicking on this icon. But, you know, I like to say, why would you want to? I think it's helpful to have them up and running here. In the upper right-hand corner, I've got a little help button. So I can click on this help button. And when I do, it will take me to a location that will have help. Let's say after this, or if you're still new and you need additional support after this, this help button has a location that says, Teachers, getting started in product navigation. What happens when I click on it? Well, here you want to go into this very central location. See this? It says Inspire Science. Now, and once you're in Inspire Science, you want to choose Inspire Science 2020 K through 12. And when I do, here it has locations that I could go to with videos, tutorials. Let's say I want to learn more about online assessments in Inspire Science. I've got printouts, I've got different video tutorials for every single step that I'm going to share with you here today, and even goes beyond. So don't think you're ever alone with Inspire Science. You always have these tutorials available to you here in this help. And so also on this dashboard screen, and by the way, this is where we're at. We just logged in and we're in the dashboard screen. If you want to think of this as the home screen, feel free to think of it as the home screen because it's the first screen that you'll see when you go into your class. And so it's highlighted, it's shaded a little bit, letting us know where we're at. I have a course view, browse my course. If I open it up, it has essentially a digital table of contents in here. And I could go into any module or lesson that I wanted to from here. Okay? I also have a search for resources button. And when I click on it, it will allow me to filter down into the resource that I'm looking for. But notice when I clicked on that, it took me to my second location over here on the left, the course view. So from the dashboard screen, I can search for resources or go to a specific lesson. These functions right here found on the dashboard screen are the same functions you're going to get if you go to the course view. It's just two different locations to go to the same place, essentially. So I'm going to go to the course view to do that. And here I have resources, and I can go to my course view, which has my digital table of contents, just like we saw from the dashboard screen. Same place it's taking me to. So the course view where we're at, which has resources and course here, are basically the places you want to go to find your stuff. So I'm looking for a lab. I'm looking for that probe. I'm looking for video or those investigator articles. How do I find all that stuff that you showed me? This is where you find it. And these are two different ways to do so, okay? Resources or the course view. And some of you might prefer one over the other. Your resources are organized just a little bit differently depending upon how you search for them. So I'm going to start with the resources search tool first to show you how that is, and then we're going to go to the course view search. So the resources search is essentially a filtering tool. So think of resources as a filtering tool for what you're looking for. It says I have 1,456 resources. But that's way too many. That's not. I can't search through all of these resources, okay? And all these different pages. 73 pages of resources. That's too many for me to look through. Let me filter down. One way you might filter down is to filter down by module and lesson. So let's say I'm looking for a specific module and lesson. So let's go into the one I showed in the PowerPoint, Information Processing and Transfer. Let me choose this module. When I choose that module, notice that we're down to 180 results. So it filtered it down a great deal. And let's filter it down even more. So I'm in this module, but I want to filter down even more. How about lesson 2, the one I showed from the PowerPoint, the role of Animalize. When I click on lesson 2, now we're down to 45 results. So now it's just giving me the resources for this specific lesson. And that's maybe what I want. So I could look at this and see all the resources available for this specific lesson. Now the first resources might be some teacher resources. So here I have a lesson at a glance. So let me click on this and see what this is first. Looks like a little lesson plan, if you will. I've got pacing. So it's saying it should take me 7 days to do this lesson. And here's the suggested pacing for each and every part of this. So it's saying the page Keeley probe and engage. That's probably a good amount of activity for day 1. Day 2, we're going to do this inquiry activity, explore together. It will take a few days to do explain. Day 3, 4, and 5 will be an explain. And it just tells you exactly what pages are involved with each one of these. It's a big picture view of how this lesson should progress. If I scroll down, it has alternative pacing here. So if you don't teach each and every day science 45 minutes a day, maybe you teach it 30 minutes a day, here's some pacing for you. And maybe you teach science 3 days a week. here's some pacing for you. So it gives you some alternative pacing here, and that's in this resource, Lesson at a Glance. I have an inquiry teacher preview here. So this is a great tool for teachers, and it's found in grades kindergarten through 5th grade. And so let's say, let's open it here. So let's say you're about to do a lab, but you're just a little uncomfortable with this lab. And you look reading it in the teacher's edition, and you go, you know what, this doesn't quite make sense. We have a lab that shows. So I'm going to mute this. And I'm just going to quickly kind of highlight through this lab. This lab is called Light Travels. And so this will walk you through each and every step of the lab so that you, the teacher, feels comfortable with implementing this lab in your classroom. It's telling you it could be for small groups, could be for whole groups. As I scroll through this, it'll give you some background science information about this lab. So it'll go through it, give you some conceptual understanding of how this lab should look. And then it'll show you what the lab will look like in the classroom, what students are going to be doing all along the way. So it will even show you expected outcomes. It'll walk you through the equipment in this lab, things that you need to do to set it up. Literally, it's basically a walkthrough of the lab for you, the teacher, so that you feel comfortable implementing this lab. Each and every lab in K-5 Inspire Science has it. It's called the Inquiry Teacher Preview Lab. There is another video here that's available for students. So this one says teacher only. This is for you, the teacher. So in this lesson, lesson 2, I've got some teacher resources to help me. And then once you get past the teacher support for this specific lesson, we get into the lesson itself. So here we have the role of animal eyes. Remember that probe with the animal's cat's eyes, or the lesson with the cat's eyes? We're in that lesson now. And so it starts with the probe on animal eyes. And so here's that probe we saw in the PowerPoint. Let's take a look at it. So this is a digital version of what's found in the print. Remember about the owls with large eyes? Two friends were talking about animal eyes. They noticed that animals that are active at night have very large eyes so they can see in the dark. And here's their answer choices. Maybe I want to assign that to students digitally since we're all remote right now. Wherever I see a resource, I'm going to see these 3 stacked dots next to them. We call this the kebab menu. And the kebab menu is a pretty big function in this platform. You'll see it quite a bit, okay? So sometimes when you want to assign a resource, look for the kebab menu. I'm going to click on it, and it says assign. So let me assign this. The assignment title, I could change that, but I'll keep it the same. Give a due date. I'm going to make this due Monday, and I'm going to say complete this probe and submit. Do I want all students to get this? Or do I want specific students to get this? I can choose, okay? For this one, I want all students to get it. I'm going to make it worth 100 points. Down here, it's going to say, do you want to copy this assignment to other classrooms? So if you want to make the same assignment available to period 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can do that. But I don't have any other classes assigned to this or in my classroom here, so I'm just going to click assign. I don't have that option available to me. Now, when I make that assignment, a little red bar will appear right here, okay, saying this is when you assigned it, and this is when it's due. So whenever you create an assignment, that red bar will appear. Once it's created, it will show up in 3 locations. It will show up in my assignment section right over here on the left. If you go to assignments, this keeps track of all the assignments I've made as a teacher. Here's my science probe. Nobody has submitted it yet. I have 14 students in my class. Nobody has submitted it yet. And here it has the start date and the due date. So that's one location it will show up automatically. It will show up in my calendar automatically. There it is, my science probe. Now this doesn't look much like a calendar because this is the day view. Let me look at the month view. And if I scroll down, here's my science probe in my calendar. It will also show up in my dashboard, also known as my home screen. When I click on dashboard, here's my science probe listed here in my dashboard calendar, okay? So when I make an assignment, it automatically shows up in 3 locations. Let's go back to that resources search a little bit more. So we filtered down into information and processing and transfer, that module, and we filtered down into lesson 2, the role of animal eyes. And so as I scroll through here, essentially, I'll find the lesson experience here, starting with the probe, then engage, where we had those cat eyes. Then we have the lab. Then we have an inquiry teacher or inquiry rewind, which, by the way, is a student version of the lab. So remember, we had the teacher version of the lab. It's called the inquiry teacher preview. We also have a student version of the lab. Now, this might be something that you want to utilize in a remote learning situation. Let's take a quick look at it. This is designed for students. So the first video was designed for teacher prep for the lab, but this was actually formatted in a way that's specific to students. And it'll walk them through that experience. So how might you use it? Well, it's kind of tough to do labs in remote learning, but you could do them virtually through this inquiry student preview. And students, maybe the next best thing to doing the lab in person with you, the class, is to walk through it in a virtual setting. So everything is set up there. Now, they may not have all of these resources available for them. Some of the labs are easy to perform at home. Some of them just may have to wait until you get together as a classroom. So just keep that in mind. They won't be able to do all of them because they may not have all of the resources at home, but many of them they will. And as I scroll down through here, it's essentially walking me through the lab. Here are my leveled readers at the end, some supplemental resources that I could use. I could go to page 2, and it will have even more resources here, more leveled readers. As I continue to scroll down here, these are all the resources available to me to send to my students as an assignment. Remember that video we saw in the PowerPoint? How do animals see?
Our eyes.
I could assign that to my students, again, by clicking on the kebab menu, clicking assign, giving a due date. I'll make this due on the 30th. I'll say, watch this video and tell me what you think about it in the morning. I want all my students to get this. I'm going to make this worth 100 points, and I'm going to click assign. Okay. Again, a red bar will appear, and it will show up in 3 locations: my assignments, my calendar, and my dashboard. So I've created 2 assignments for my students. Let's take a peek at what it looks like on the student side. And so what do they see? Let me go into JJ's 4th grade class. So when I go into JJ's 4th grade class, here are my 2 assignments waiting for me. That video that I just assigned and that Page Keeley probe. Okay, it's just waiting for me here. Now, when I complete these assignments, they'll show up in my past work section. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at these assignments and send them to my teacher. Okay? So first one I sent was this analyzing the probe. So let's click Let's Go. It gives me some information about the due date, my instructions, complete this probe and submit. So 2 friends were talking about animal eyes. They noticed that animals that are active and I have large eyes so they can see in the dark. So what am I going to choose here? I think they still need some light to see, so I'm going to agree with Jaden. And why? I remember this being discussed in the book. They need a little bit of light to see. And know that it's automatically saving for me. It says saving here. So all along the way when students are typing, it's auto saving. They don't have to click a save button or anything. So it's automatically saving for them. So what I do have to do is click submit. So I'm done with this as a student. I'm going to click submit. It says, are you sure you want to submit? Yeah, I'm sure I want to submit. I'm going to click yes. And so now a little check mark will appear, and that's something that I've already submitted. It will now show up in my past work section. So it's no longer in my to-dos. it's something that is part of my past work. Then I have this little video here, how do animals see? And let's click on it. And basically, my teacher just wants me to watch this and tell me what they think in the morning. Okay, so I'm just going to watch this as a student. Maybe I make some notes, and as I scroll through this, it goes through how different animals see in the dark and in the light. Does a snake see the world a little bit different than a cat or a dog? So we'll walk through students through this kind of stuff. And so I watched it. So I did exactly what my teacher told me. I'm ready to talk about it tomorrow. And I'm going to click submit. You sure you want to submit the work? Yes, I am. Okay. So now when I go to my home screen, as a student, the little check mark will appear, and I go to past work. And both of these are ready, they're ready for grading. I've already done them. My assignments have been done. Okay. When I go back to my teacher side, let me just make sure I'm in the teacher side. Yep, I'm here, JJ, or Jason, I mean. Let's take a look at what it looks like now. So I've assigned something to my students. They've taken those assignments. They've sent them back to me. So what does it look like on my side? So let me go to my assignments here. Now it says one person of my class has submitted both of these assignments. Okay, well, let's take a look at this one person's. I'm going to click on this little kebab menu. And by the way, I told you the kebab menu is a pretty big player in this platform. It's a pretty powerful tool. You see it a lot. Whenever you're asking yourself, I want to do something. I want to share this. I want to edit it. I want to view it. But you don't see a button that specifically says that. See if there's a kebab menu around. So I want to view these scores. Let's see if the kebab menu lets me do that. Yep, view scores. Okay. So I view scores. And I scroll down, and let's see who's completed this. Yep, JJ has completed this. Let me view JJ's work. And so here I see his work. Let's take a look at it here. All right, let's see what JJ chose. JJ chose Jaden, and let me see why. Oh, okay, very good. JJ has been paying attention. I'm going to give him 100 points. I'm going to add a little note here. Nice work. You were listening. And I'll save that, and that's a note JJ will see when he goes on online. And from here, I can go from student to student by clicking on these arrows. Now, nobody else in my class has submitted this, so you don't see any more work here. I can also just pull this pull-down menu and choose specific students that I want to go to. So maybe I want to go to Clyde or to Debbie. I could go to students this way and go grade my class assignments that way. Okay. So anything in the student book can be assigned and submitted, like this video. So basically, I just wanted JJ to view it and be ready to discuss. So there really won't be any results here to take a look at, okay, other than he's just submitted it. And I could give him a score for having submitted it if I wanted to. Okay, so I've assigned two things to my students. And how did I do that? I did that from the resource view. So we filtered down to what we were looking for. We filtered down by module and then lesson. Okay, that's one way to filter. I also have a keyword search, and I could use these in tandem. So I filter down by module and lesson. Maybe I want to find an inquiry resource from here. And so then it will filter down even more to those inquiry resources in this specific lesson. So the keyword search up here can be used in tandem with the module lesson filter. So maybe I just want inquiry resources, and that will appear. 204 inquiry-related resources. Maybe I want inquiry resources related to energy. Now I'm down to 41, okay? And so I could use the keyword search or this module lesson filter to filter down to what I'm looking for. It could even filter by resource type. So the resource search is a filtering tool, and one way you can use to find your resource. One tool you could use to find the resource that you're looking for. The other one is this course view. So let's transition to the course view and see how that is a little bit different. Same resources are in here, They're just organized in a little bit different way. So let me go into that same lesson that we've been working with, information processing and transfer, and go into that same lesson, lesson 2, role of animalize. So all those same resources are in here. They're just organized a little bit differently. Here they have little file folders. So we've organized, instead of a big list like we saw in the resources view, we've organized them into ISO file folders. So here's the science probe. I can open that up. It's already been assigned. We assigned it to the resources view, so it's already assigned. But notice here I could assign it. Now, one big difference between the resource search and if you go to the course view where we're at now is that when you find a resource, you don't have to click on that kebab menu to click assign. Here, there's an assign button. That's one reason I like to use this version. Plus, for some reason, I like these little file folders. Maybe I'm organized that way. A list isn't organized enough for me. I like to see the file folders. And so here, when I open up a file folder and explain, I've got all these different little things that I could assign. And these were available in the resources search. I could have assigned them there, but here they are organized within the lesson plan into little file folders by the E. And so when I'm going to explain, these little tiles here, these little resources, are actually are pages from the book. So maybe you want to give students a reading assignment. Okay. Here we have this reading assignment. The way Animal Eyes see it, straight from the book. Okay. Unlike the book, though, sometimes these will have little videos or simulations embedded with them. So this one has a little simulation embedded with it. And then at the end of this, let's take a look at this. I've got a little something that I have to answer. How are the eyes of animals similar to humans? How are they different? This is perfect. I'm going to assign this to my students. I think it was this one. Yeah, I think it was this one. I'm going to click assign. Okay. Just like we did before, we choose a due date. I'm going to choose Monday. I'm going to say read and answer the question. And I'm going to make this worth 100 points. Again, I could have assigned this to all of my classes, but I only have one class for 4th grade, so it doesn't give me that option. I'm going to click assign, and now that's been assigned to my students. Okay. And so a red bar will appear, and by now you know where it's going to be found. You know that it's going to be in my assignments list. I'll just show you to prove it. There it is. Read about it. You know it's going to be in my dashboard. You know it'll show up in my calendar as well. So I have one assignment sent to my students that my students haven't taken yet. Okay. Let me send one more thing to them while we're here. And that's a test. We haven't talked about tests yet. So I remember you, Jason, telling us we have pre-made tests, pre-made lesson tests, module tests. How do I find this stuff? Well, there's this location over here called assessments. And when I click on assessments, I have all of my tests organized by module. And so let's say I want to go into the module information processing and transfer, because that's the one we've been working with. I open up that. I have a module pretest that I can send to my students. I have lesson checks for the 3 lessons, and I have a module test. These are all pre-made tests that I can send to my students. So pretest might be a formative assessment test. I send it out before this module to get an idea of what students are thinking going into this lesson. Okay, or into this module. Or I could send a lesson check or a module post-test at the end. Whenever I want to assign these, if I wanted to look at this test to see the questions, I would just click on the test itself, and I could preview this test. Okay? Here are all the questions. You might be saying, well, some of them are cut off. I can't read them all. Well, if I click on put my cursor on it, the entire test question will appear, and I can see whether or not this is something I want to be a part of my test. Okay? I could edit this if I wanted to, but we'll do that here shortly. Let's say I wanted to assign this test, or any one of these tests. How about this lesson check? The role of animal eyes. I click on this kebab menu, and I click assign. Remember I said, if you're ever thinking, how do I do something? See if there's a kebab menu close by. There is for this one, lesson check, role of animal eyes, and I'm going to assign this to my class. A date will appear Oh, let me alter something really fast here. Let me go to my settings, and let me make the due date a little bit farther down the line here. It'll be end date for this class, okay? Come out of here, and let me go back in now. Sorry about that. I probably should have done that before this class. My class was ending today. I can't have a due date that's after the end of this class. So let me go back into assessments here. Let's go into information processing and transfer. Let's go into the role of animal eyes, and let's assign this again. So here we have a due date. I'm going to make this due on Monday the 31st. I want all of my students to get this. But again, remember, I could choose specific students. Do I want to share with Google? I could do that if I wanted to. And then for tests, it gives you some other options here, which I think are pretty cool. What do you want students to see? Okay, do you want them to see just their scores? Do you want them to see their answers? Okay, I've got some choices here. Do I want them to see an explanation? Okay. And then I've got these other tools here called student settings. And here I've got some really cool tools. Do I want them to have text to speech? So do certain students need the question to be read to them? I'm going to highlight that. Do they need a line reader? I'm going to highlight that. It focuses their attention on a specific line. Now in this one, they're probably not going to need a calculator, but you know what? I'm just going to send one over their way just so you can see this function. How about a scientific calculator? Probably never in K through 5, but I'm going to activate it just for the purposes of you can see what it looks like. And so once I have all the parameters that I want here, I click Assign. And so we have 2 new assignments waiting for me as a student. If I go to my assignment section, that lesson check and this read about are my 2 assignments. Nobody has taken these yet. Let's go over to JJ's side and take those assignments. We go to JJ's side. I got to refresh the screen. Let me refresh my screen. And now, when I refresh, let me refresh again here. Well, it's not showing up here. Let's let me pop out of here real fast. Go into JJ's page here. There it is. Now it's showing up here. So just needed a second to refresh. Here are my 2 new assignments. Okay, I've got my past work section here, and then the things that I haven't turned in will show up in to do. Let's take this read about it first here. Let's take a look at it first. I open it up. Here are my instructions, and let's say I actually gave students the instructions to highlight and annotate this text. Now, this isn't something you may want a K through 5 student doing, but my middle school teachers, this is something I taught in middle school. This is something I probably would want my students to do, highlight and annotate. So let me show you that function as well. Everybody has a K through 8. I could have this page read to me as a student. So I've got this audio button right here. So it will read this entire page. Okay? I can also, as a student, click and drag on a sentence. And when I do, a little pop-up window will appear. And here, I could have the specific sentence read to me. I've got a speaker button for it. I could bookmark this location. I could also highlight. I'm going to highlight this blue and make a note here. I think this will be on the test. So I've got some tools here as a student. I can have it read to me, I can highlight it, I can bookmark it, I can make little notes. I'm going to save that bookmark. Now, notice when I save a bookmark, a little red dotted line will appear. It's letting me know that I have a bookmark there. So in the future, I can just click on it, and I can see that note that I made for myself. So if I click on to the next page, I've got a little simulation here, the role of analyze. Tap on the picture to explore the simulation. Okay, let me tap on this. It'll take me to this interactive. Okay, so I've got this little interactive that I can walk through. Just for the sake of time, I won't go through this interactive. I'll go ahead and close this out. Okay. So I did that as a student. And then now I have the third page. I've got a little question. How are eyes of animals similar to using? How are they different? I might say they both need, both humans and animals need light, and their eyes are located in similar places. How's that for an answer? So I've done exactly what the teacher asked me. Notice it's auto-saving, just like we saw before. And then I click Submit. You sure you want to submit? Yes, I'm ready to submit it. Okay, so that's been sent to my teachers for grading. And then I have this lesson check. Let's do it really fast. Click on this lesson check. And we're going to take a test real fast. Okay, I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm not going to even look at the questions too much, but I want you to see what it looks like. So I'm going to choose C here. Next question. I've got a little matching. So here I can move things around. We just do this really fast here. Okay, how about there? How about up here? And how about this one for this one? Okay, so you got question variety here that you could send to your students. Let me just go through this really fast here. I probably won't get any of these right. Here's a little closed question, CLOZE. I get another multiple choice. I'm at 6. I've got some short answer. I'm not sure what the answer is for that. Let's go to the next question. And I've got an essay question here, so I'm just going to answer these really fast. So you got a lot of variety. And by the way, I could have customized this test. So I could have edited some of these out of here if I didn't want all of them to appear. So I could customize any test that I create. And I could add questions from scratch. So I'm just going to go through that really fast. And now I'm done as JJ. And I'm going to submit this test. So let me view my scores here. I doubt I got any right. Waiting for teacher review. Okay. So let's go to the student side. So now that lesson check is done. It will show up in my past work section. So everything's been turned in. Let's go back to the teacher side to see this assignment. I'm going to refresh here, my teacher screen. And now, when I'm in assignments, I have one student that turn in the read about and one student that turn in the lesson check. Let's take a look at the read about. I go to view scores by clicking on the kebab menu. And remember those highlighting and that annotating that I did? I wonder if I'll be able to see that as a teacher. Can I see that students have highlighted their text or annotated it? Let's go ahead and view this assignment. I'm in JJ's page here, and I can go to his page, back to his page 1, and yes, I could see that he highlighted and annotated this page, just like I told him to. And I'll give him 100 points, save that, and maybe make a little note for him. Nice work. And click Save for that. And so anything the students do on this assignment, I'll be able to see as a teacher. And remember, I could go to different students by clicking on the down arrow or the left or right arrows, and it'll take me to other students in my class. I have one other assignment that the student did. It's the lesson check. I could view scores on it. And let me go down to JJ. Where is he? There he is. View score sheet. And now I can view his scores. And notice that green are the ones he got right. So he got a 40. He didn't do too bad for just guessing on this. And so green are the ones he got right. So I can see, okay, he chose retina, and retina is the correct answer. Let me see one he got wrong, question 3. He chose convex, and the answer was really concave. And so I'll be able to see a score. And then anything that I want, he needs my grading here. I could come in here and choose to give him credit. So I'm going to give him a point for that. And it'll update his score. So now he has 50. I gave him a point for this short answer. Okay, so anything that requires your grading, you could just add a little score here. So we've taken, let me close out of here. We've taken 4 assignments from the teacher side or sent them to the students have taken them and sent them back. And everything that has been scored will show up in your grade book. So here are my 4 assignments that have been sent to students. Most students haven't taken them, but JJ, he has a few things that have graded. I graded this read about it section and this lesson check. So he has a score on those 2 things that we graded. So let's go back just a little bit to the course view. I know I have about 10 more minutes and I'm going to answer some questions here. So we know the dashboard screen is the home screen, right? It's the first thing that you see. We know that we have a course view and a resources view. The same 2 functions I see here at the dashboard are the same that I'm going to find if I just click course here. Same 2 things. I've got resources and a course view. We know that the resources is my filtering tool to find my stuff. So I can zero in by clicking on keywords like energy, let's say, and it will filter down until I find what I'm looking for. Or I could choose to filter down, like most people do, I think, is they want to go to their specific lesson they're teaching. So they'll go to that module and lesson, and it'll continue to filter down to that. I could even choose resource type and filter down even further to, let's say, just PDFs, if I know something is a PDF. Okay? Like these investigator articles, those magazine-style articles for students. So resources is basically a filtering tool, and it will create a list for you. If I assign something here in the resources search, I don't have an assign button. Remember, I have to click on the kebab menu, and I can assign it here. If I go to the course search, though, course view, I will have an assign button next to every resource. And it's also going to organize my resources into handy little file folders. Okay? And any one of these can be assigned to my students. So a lesson check for Analyze, I could assign it right here. It's that same test that I had in my assessment section, but it's also here in my Evaluate. So anything here can be assigned by clicking on the Assign button. Okay, so resources and course, all found in the course view, are different ways to find stuff. Assessments has my pre-made tests, organized by module, and then I can open up and look at the pre-test, lesson checks, and post-tests. Now, what if I want to create a test from scratch? Okay, I don't want to use these pre-tests. I want to see the questions, and I want to pick and choose my own questions that I want to be a part of this. Okay? To do that, click on New Assessment. I'm going to call this Saturday K-8 Pop Quiz. And I'm going to click Create Assessment. So I've just given it a title. That's all I've done. Saturday K-8 Pop Quiz. Now, what questions do I want to be a part of this test? Do I want to create new questions from scratch? I mean, I can do that, okay? But if you're like me, you know, I'd rather pull from what McGraw Hill's already created. Maybe they have a perfect question already created. So I want to start there. So let me add questions from McGraw Hill assessments. So I click on the second choice. Hey, which test do you want to pull from? How about energy and matter? Okay, what specific test? The pre-test, one of the lesson checks, or the post-test? Let me take a look at the post-test. Okay, I'm going to choose this one right here. Now all of those questions in that test will be listed here. All the questions in that module post-test. Now, how do I get them over here to my test? I could click on these boxes and click Add, and they'll come over there. Now, you might say, well, I can't see the entire question. How do I see the entire question? I could just click on my cursor and the entire question will appear. The other way to do it that I like is I like to show Preview All. Now, here you see it nice and big. And you can pick the questions you want to be a part of this test. So this one's already added. It's one of those 3 that I added right there just a moment or 2 ago. So it'll already say, it would say add if it was available to add, but it's on there already, so it says removed. So I like that one. I like this one. I like this one. So now the next ones will say add, because I haven't added those yet. Yeah, I like that question. Let me just take a look at the choices. Okay, that's perfect. They better get that one, right? So I'm going to add that to the test. Question has been added. Let me add another question. Okay, that's a good one. Let me add this one. Let me take a look at this one. I don't like that one, so I could go right past that. but I do like this one. Let me click Add. And so now those questions have been a part of this test. I have a 6-question test. Let me add 3 more just to make it 10. Add these 3 more. I'm going to click Add. So now I have a 10-question quiz. What's the title of this quiz? My Saturday K-8 pop quiz. I click Save and Exit. Now, where does that test exist? A test that I just created. Any test that you create from scratch will show up in My Assessments. That's basically your folder for anything that's newly created. So when I click on My Assessments, I bet you at the very top, there it is, Saturday K-8 pop quiz. And once I've created it, just like anything else, I could assign it to my students, and it will be a test waiting for them when they go on. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Assign real fast, and that's being sent to JJ. Okay? One other thing I want to share with you before we pause is you have a launch presentation tool here. So the launch presentation is essentially kind of like a little mini PowerPoint, if you will, except all the videos are embedded within here. So if you want to walk students through the lesson in class, just walk them through this presentation tool. So starting with the probe, I've got this lesson at a glance. I added that. You could remove it if you want to. Now we're in this phenomena video. We go to lesson section, or the second page here. I've got that cat eyes video here that we can take a look at here. So all the videos, all the animations are all embedded within it. And I can walk students through the student book lesson this way. I could choose to edit this lesson as well. So if I click on this edit button, I could choose to remove stuff from this presentation. This lesson at a glance, that's mainly for me, the teacher. Let me remove that. So it's deactivated. It turns dark. So it's no longer present in the lesson. Right now, I just have the student lesson stuff, but you know what? Maybe I want to bring this leveled reader in. Or maybe I want to bring in the STEM. Let me see what else is here at the end here. How about this video called The Eye? Let me bring this video called The Eye. I want to bring that into my presentation. I could even move it around. So how about this showing up at the beginning of the lesson? Let's bring it all the way to the front here. I'm just moving it past all of those unactivated resources. I want it to appear first thing, even before my probe. I want students to watch this video very first thing. So let's get past that activated probe. Where are you at? There it is. And now this will show up beforehand. Now when I click my presentation, click Launch Presentation, the first thing that I will see will be that video called The Eye. Now, last thing I'll share with you, and then I'm going to be done. Once you customize this lesson, this may be what you want students to see when they walk through this lesson on their side. So let's go to JJ's side and go to that same lesson. Let's see what it looks like. I go to my lessons. On JJ's side, I've got this little button called Lessons. I go to that lesson that my teacher told me that we're going to go through today. It's Information Processing and Transfer, the role of animal eyes, that one that I just added that eye video to. Now if I launch my presentation, I see on the student side, I see exactly what my teacher wanted me to see. Remember that video? It wasn't there a few moments ago. I added it. I rearranged the presentation so my students see exactly what I want them to see. So as a teacher, let me go back to the teacher side. I can customize the lesson presentation I want my students to see. Okay? So I'm towards the end of my time here, and I'm sure we have some questions. One last thing. Everything that I showed you here in 4th grade, we didn't get to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade too much, but everything works the exact same way on the 7th grade side. You have a course view, you got a dashboard. When I go to course view, I have a resources search, which is a filtering tool. I have a course view. Everything works the exact same way. So I'm towards the end of my time. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jason. That was a very thorough presentation.
Yeah.
We have question from Russia, and I think you've just answered that while you spoke about it. So Russia is asking if she uses kindergarten, and she's like, what assessments are created in kindergarten? Can you show us some resources used in kindergarten? Are these all applicable in kindergarten? So I'll just let you say that one more time about everything is the same. You've just gone through grade 4, but it's
everything, all the functionality that I shared with you is found in every grade. Kindergarten obviously will have different resources than a 4th grade teacher and different resources than a 7th grade teacher. But the functionality, the way you do stuff is the same, whatever grade level you're in. So I just activated kindergarten real fast. Let me go into my kindergarten class in a while, and you can see everything is the same. I've got a course view. I've got resources here, 1,237, and just like I showed before, I could filter down into the specific resources that I'm looking for in kindergarten as well. So everything is the same. Any other questions?
Yes, we've got one more, which is kindly, can you mention again the available print resources per grade in Inspire Science? Example, teacher's edition, student edition, assessment labs.
The print resources you're asking.
Yes, available print resources.
Okay, so print resources, let's go back up to this PowerPoint here. If you're a K-5 teacher or a kindergarten and 1st grade teacher, you have these science read-alouds. They're actual magazines. They're print magazines that can be projectable if you go online. If you are, and they come in fiction and nonfiction. If you are grades 2 through 5, you have these investigator articles. Now, are these found digitally as well? Yes, but they're also in print, physical print investigator magazines with cutting-edge science. Level readers are also in print. These are grades K through 5, okay? Now, if you're in middle school, you have some print resources found in here as well. Things like STEM career connections and other print resources, STEM projects, and they're found through a resources search here as well. So the student edition and teacher's edition obviously is in print. So your classroom should have a student edition per student and a teacher's edition for teachers. If you're looking for digital versions of those print resources, let's say a student edition and a teacher's edition, I would just go to course view. And if I go all the way up here to program resources, and if you're looking for digital versions, I have my course planning resources. And here are all my digital teacher's editions, and all my digital student editions are here in learning resources. And these are assignable as well. Do students already have the student editions on their side? Yes, they do. You never have to assign these, but maybe you want to focus students' attention on one of these units as opposed to them maybe accidentally getting into one of these other units. So if you wanted to, you could assign this specific student edition for the time that you're going to be working in it. So the print resources are different K-5 than they are 7 through 8. There are more in K through 5 than there are in 6 through 8, but they're also available online.
Thanks, Jason. Kareem has a question for us. Thank you, Kareem, for your question. It's how many science lessons, when using Inspire Science, should students take per week? What do you think?
Okay. Every lesson in Inspire Science, K through 5, this is like a ballpark. Now, this could be some shorter, some longer. Every lesson is designed to take about a week. Some shorter, some longer. So some lessons you'll see might take 4 days, 3 days maybe. Some may take 9, but every lesson is designed to be about a week, 5 to 7 days of instruction. Every module is about a month. So think of every lesson about a week, some shorter, some longer. Every module about a month, some shorter, some longer.
And Rami's reminding us that, can you tell us the answer to the temperature in the mittens?
Ah, great question. Let's take a look at this. let's, for those of you that may have forgotten, we introduced the idea of a mitten problem through or the probes through a mitten problem. And so the best answer for the probe, let me pull this up here really fast. Okay, go here. The best answer, will the mitten A, will the thermometer A have a low temperature reading after an hour, a higher temperature reading after an hour, or C, both thermometers have the same temperature reading? The best answer for the mitten probe is C. Both thermometers will have the same temperature reading. Now, a lot of students will choose B. The thermometer inside the mitten will have a higher temperature reading. Why? Because of their experiences in 4th grade. They're thinking, okay, mittens make my hands warm. So obviously it's going to be warmer inside a mitten, right? Well, what's making it warm inside the mitten is the student's body heat. The thermometer is not giving off any heat. It's the same temperature. It's much in the same way when we go into our covers at night. It gets warm under the covers, but it's our body heat that's being trapped by the covers. If we just slip the thermometer underneath the covers, is it going to get any warmer underneath those covers? It's not going to get any warmer because the thermometer is not giving off any heat. So if you chose C, that is the best possible answer for the probe.
Thank you so much. And we have a couple of more questions coming in. Thank you, everyone, for your question. There's one that says, how can coordinators check teachers' work?
How can coordinators check teachers' work? Now, when you say work, help me out. A little bit more specificity. What are you hoping to check?
I think, I don't know, it's not very much, but what I think we can understand, maybe she's trying to say that check how much they have assigned to their students, what's happening, just to keep a track. So how can coordinators keep a track on their teachers? Is that what you're trying to say?
I see. So there are some administrator functions in here as well, which allow for that. So if I click on up here in the upper right-hand corner, and I don't think I have these activated in my account, but there are administrator functions that will allow you to see usage data.
Yeah.
And see performance reports and assessments, and get to see what from a big picture, how long teachers are logged in, how long, what they're assigning, and that sort of thing. I think that answers your question.
Yes, I think so. If you have anything other than this that you're specifically looking for, please let us know in the Q&A. And one common question coming up is, are the magazines available with the program, or we have to buy them on the side?
Oh, well, and I could, again, this is a purchase by purchase situation. I guess it would depend on whether your district purchased that through your McGraw Hill sales representative, as to whether you have those magazine articles, or if you just have them digitally. Now, I wouldn't know that unless that'd be something your sales rep or your coordinator in your district would have to be able to answer for you.
Absolutely right. And we'll take one last question here owing to time, which is, can you download the book as PDF, digital edition offline, other than the Read Anywhere mobile application?
Other than the Read Anywhere mobile application, no. That the student edition or the teachers cannot be saved as a PDF.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone.
Yep. And by the way, the Read Anywhere is a downloadable app where your students can have the student edition on their student phone. I highly encourage you to have your students, if they have phones, download the McGraw Hill Read Anywhere app, and then they'll enter their username and password, and they'll be able to see their book digitally on their smartphone. And so many of our students have smartphones these days.
That's true. Thank you, Jason. That was a really thorough session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.
It's really lovely. Thank you so much. And I hope we've covered everything so far. We've answered the question, and we've got more sessions for you. So I'm just going to drop off the link in the chat box. There are back to school support and resources sessions that we're currently running for K-8 as well as for K-6-12. I'm just going to drop off the links, and you can register for as many sessions as you want. Stay connected with us on our social channels and drop us an email if you have any other questions or anything that we can help you with. As my colleague Afsana mentioned, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar, so you should have it in a week's time in your email, and you'll also have the option to download the certificate for this webinar. So thank you for joining us.